welcome to the Ontario Landlord Podcast. Here we are again supporting our Ontario landlords, giving them information that they need to know. And today we're going to talk about selling your tenanted property. Lots of things that come up here, so we're going to dive into it again. And once again, our good friend, our paralegal from Stonegate Legal Services, Rob Di Lisi. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for inviting me back. I'm excited to talk about the subject that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, excited to have you here as well. As always, you're very informative. So as a realtor, landlords ask us all the time to sell their properties, and we have to break down, the different things that can happen, pros and cons to everything. And the most important one is, can we get the tenant out to sell the property, right? How can we sell it with vacant possession? Because as you know, and everybody else should realize, Clause 2 on the agreement of purchase and sale, the seller is guaranteeing vacant possession. So there is a way that you can change that. But anyways, that's the way it's stated, and that's the way it should be done from our side. So how do we make that happen?
All right. So there's two ways of looking at this. So either A, you try to sell the property with the tenant in the property, but there's two ways that you have to look at it. Is number one, like you said, in the agreement of purchase and sale on clause number 2, it says that the seller shall guarantee vacant possession unless stated otherwise in this agreement. That means in your Schedule A, you can put a clause that the buyer will assume the tenant and that the seller will be responsible for just doing the requisite notices of the N12 and the compensation. However, a lot of times that the buyer will ask for a steep discount, because to get to the board on an N12, you are looking at minimum 6 to 8 months and then 30 to 60 days to get the order. And then the buyer must move in for 1 year. That's option number one. Option number 2 would be to approach the tenant and work out a settlement. And that would be to entice them with monetary, obviously, money, to leave the property. And that would be done through an N11. And that term, as I'm sure people have heard before, is cash for keys. Those are the two primary ways.
So cash for keys, to get the person out. We've talked about that before. If you want to learn more about that, check it out on another episode that we have there for cash for keys. Having the property vacant is how we want to sell the property. It makes things so much easier from the sale point. It allows you to be able to have full control of the situation as the seller. If there's a tenant still living in your property, they have all the control, all the power with regards to showings, with whether they let you take video or pictures, because it's their possessions inside, right? And that's going to go on the internet, so you have to get their approval for all of that. I can tell you that I've had tenants in the past deny showings for all different reasons. Oh, it's during my dinner time, and dinner time always seemed to be between 4 and 8:30. Didn't matter. It was always during dinner hour. Obviously, the tenant didn't want to leave, and the property was probably going to be bought by a person that planned to move in, and that was going to disrupt this tenant's living. I think, anyways, that's why he was so tough to work with in that situation. So I've been on that side, and I work with the landlords, and we always suggest trying to sell the property while it's vacant. One, it allows for touch-ups, so you can maximize the dollar this way. You can repaint, you can do all these things, so the property is going to show its best. And also being able to, again, video, photos, and stuff like that. So we can use N11, cash for keys, right, to get them out. We can sell it when it's vacant. Where else should we be thinking about this when we are going to be selling this property? Let's say we can't get the tenant out. What do we have to think about while we're selling?
Well, here's the thing is that if you want to sell the property, you do have the legal right to do so. The problem is, like you said, they control the showings. They must consent on pictures. They must consent on video. And then the question is that, are you able to guarantee vacant possession? So if you're going to sell the property, just make sure that you do not guarantee vacant possession. But again, the issue will be now is that the buyer is going to have to wait 6, 8, even 10 months before they take possession. So possibly an alternative is to approach the tenant with the cash for keys. and I've brought this up in other videos, just because the lease is coming to an end, or you want to sell, it doesn't mean that the tenant has to move out. There's a term that we've talked about before. It's called security of tenure. And there's only three ways to terminate a tenancy. And that is, number one, if the tenant decides to leave, that's an N9. The landlord and tenant mutually agree, which is the N11, or there's an order. Now, in regards to cash for keys, yes, it is an N11, but cash for keys is a separate process than N11. N11 is the document that you want, but cash for keys is a process of getting them out, because you need the documentation so that it's done properly.
So another situation, Rob, that I'll bring up to you that we've been through before with a couple of our clients was properties that had tenants in it that were not well maintained, dilapidated, and tenants complaining about it and everything like that. And the seller ended up selling it to a builder, someone that was going to demolish this property, because to renovate it or anything like that, there was not much value left in it for somebody to do anything. So our sellers had sold it to builders to demo the property and build something new, whether it became multifamily or a bigger home on that same property. And we did cash for keys to guarantee everything, because like you said, it's not a guarantee for them to go. Even though with demolition to build it, demolition of the property is another form, right? But they still could fight it. Even though we did everything properly that we had to do, they still could have fought it. And my sellers, because they were selling it, had to then make sure vacant possession was had for the builder. Do you want to maybe go into the N13 and talk about how that?
Yeah, the N13. So what you're talking about is the N13, and that's for demolition. The thing though is that, again, on the seller side at least, that means you're not guaranteeing vacant possession. So if the buyer is going to be a builder, they're still going to try to negotiate a better price, because now they're going to have to go through their own process, which is the N13. Remember, the N13 is a notice, just like all the other notices. It is a minimum 90-day notice for the N13, 1 month's rent. But now the difference will be is that buyer or builder has to have the permits, the plans, the architectural plans ready for the board. And if you were listening earlier, you're looking at minimum 6 to 8 months to get to the board. And then you have to prove to the board that this is what the builder or buyer wants to do. So this is going to be at least a year process. Or the builder can revisit a cash for keys process if the tenant is willing to do it.
Yeah, it's definitely an easy math situation there, right? When you're figuring out what's going to happen. What am I paying here to be able to sell it for more money, get this done quicker, be able to move on faster. Again, I think we touched on everything there when we're thinking about selling a property with a tenant in it, or again, the best way to sell that property is to have vacant possession. If you can time it out when they're magically moving out, and then do it then if it's working out in your schedule to do that, or again, I think cash for keys, as we've talked about, to get somebody out so you have the control and the power back of the sale process there, instead of the tenant dictating whether you can, again, showings, video, photo, everything really. And then again, do they even leave when it comes time for them, the closing date to come? So if you have any questions about selling a property that's tenanted, or if you need help selling a property, we can definitely discuss that. Kevin Breitner with the Cressy team. But again, thanks so much, Ontario Landlords. Thanks so much, Rob, for joining us today. And we'll see you next time with more great information. All right, bye for now. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us this week. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you're finding it informative and useful, make sure to like, subscribe, share with a friend so that we can keep getting the information out there to Ontario landlords. And keep on joining us. We'll see you next time.